So Donald Trump is going to sit down with the president of Mexico just hours before he gives his big speech on immigration. Some have said it will be historic and landmark, words like that being thrown around about this important speech tonight as we welcome you to Hour 2 now of America's Newsroom. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Greg Jordan for Bill Hemmer. Donald Trump announcing the surprise trip late last night, accepting an invitation issued over the weekend by President Nieto of Mexico. Trump running mate Mike Pence telling us last hour the meeting will be a dialogue concerning their differences, but also their agreements.
At the end of the day, I think today is more about a relationship. I mean, what you're seeing in high relief here is not only the decisiveness of Donald Trump, but also you're seeing someone who doesn't come from a background in politics where I guess Hillary Clinton is still processing whether or not she's going to go or when she's going to go. Donald Trump gets an invitation to sit down with our neighbor to the south. He makes a decision to go, to sit down, because he understands that all negotiations begin with relationships.
Senior national correspondent John Roberts is live in Phoenix. He joins us now. John?
Greg, good morning to you. You know, the senior Republican leadership is looking at this trip as an opportunity for Donald Trump to look presidential. President Enrique Peña Nieto issued 2 invitations last Friday, one to the Donald Trump campaign, one to the Hillary Clinton campaign. Donald Trump jumped on it within a few days. Hillary Clinton's campaign in response has been saying, well, you know, we don't need to go to Mexico because we talk with them all the time. We'll do it when it's appropriate. But more recently, in just the last hour or so, saying we look forward to meeting with President Peña Nieto at the appropriate time. It really will be interesting, or at least it would, because nobody will be able to get in. But it would be interesting to be in that meeting, because these are 2 men who have been saying rather unkind things about each other or each other's country. Peña Nieto saying that Trump was a kind of a Hitler-esque or Mussolini type of character. Donald Trump, of course, saying that he wants to renegotiate NAFTA, accusing the Mexican government of sending criminals across the border here into the United States. And, of course, his signature issue of the campaign, saying that he wants to build the wall and that Mexico is going to pay for it. You might remember that evoked a rather terse response from the former president, Vicente Fox, who dropped the F-bomb in talking about Donald Trump and his plans to build the wall. Vicente Fox saying a short time ago, Trump is not welcome in Mexico, prompting Trump to tweet this, quote, former President Vicente Fox, who was railing against my visit to Mexico today, also invited me when he apologized for using the F-bomb. In fact, on Bill O'Reilly's show back in May, Vicente Fox said he thought it would be a great idea for Donald Trump to come and visit Mexico. Here's more of what Mike Pence said is likely in store for the meeting, which should be in about 3 hours' time.
That will enable us to have a dialogue about all the issues that we're dealing with, the common issues of stopping drug trafficking, to stopping the importation of illegal drugs into this country. Today are going to talk about the issues that they agree on, but we're also going to talk about, I'm sure, begin the conversation about that wall, our commitment to build a wall, physical barrier, the obligation that we want to see to end illegal immigration in this country.
Now, the initial plan, and this could possibly change, is after the private meeting, the 2 leaders may both give personal statements and then take questions from the media. But all this was so hastily arranged, Greg, that plan may not come to pass, though we hope it will, because it'd be great to see the 2 people together. Greg?
Yeah. Hey, John, there are some poll numbers out that things are sort of looking up for the Trump campaign. Is that cheering him up a bit?
A combination of a little bit of good news, a little bit of bad news in this new ABC News Washington Post poll for Donald Trump. Bad news, though, for Hillary Clinton. This looked at their unfavorability ratings. This is basically likability. Take a look at this. Hillary Clinton's latest number when it comes to unfavorability, 59%. That is an increase of 6 points since earlier in August. Donald Trump standing at about 60. He's pretty much even. Among women, though, Hillary Clinton's unfavorable ratings in the last few weeks have gone up 9 points. She's now at 52%, whereas Donald Trump's numbers have gone down to 65%, though he has a commensurate increase in the number of men. Also, when it comes to African-American voters, Donald Trump's unfavorable ratings now 84%. A horrible number, but not as horrible as it was when it stood at 91% back at the beginning of the month.
Slight improvement, maybe due to the outreach. Hard to tell. All right,
Going
John.
in the right direction.
John, thanks very much. John Roberts.
Thanks, Greg.
So for more on this, I'm joined by Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, who is an advisor for Trump's border plan and the plan to build the wall. Good to have you with us. Welcome back to the show this morning. Good to see you, sir.
Great to be with you.
So what are your feelings about this meeting with the president of Mexico? Apparently there was some dissension in the room when this whole idea was discussed. Some people thought it might not be a great idea given the things that the president has said about Donald Trump in the past.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, it shows a number of things. It shows that Mr. Trump is willing to not only take a very strong position, obviously his position on the wall has been more than any presidential candidate has ever said in our history, and yet after taking that strong position, he's willing to say, okay, now you talk to me. And that's going to be going forward. And, you know, as we build a stronger border security, we actually have a physical barrier on the border, and then we have stronger enforcement policies. I think you'll see Mexico saying, okay, let's talk. Because one of the things many people don't recognize is that Mexico doesn't really have a social safety net. They send and encourage their poorest people to come to the United States and then send remittances back home, and that essentially is their welfare program. So once we start enforcing our immigration laws, Mexico will probably be saying to the United States, can you help us in some way? So I think Mr. Trump recognizes there has to be dialogue as well as law enforcement.
So what areas do you think that Donald Trump might find some negotiable with the president?
Well, one of these issues is actually going to be the fence itself. You know, as Mr. Trump has said many times, that he would like to see Mexico pay for it, and there is a mechanism to make Mexico do that, and that is the Patriot Act actually has a provision that could allow the United States to stop that flow of remittances across the border. If we exercise that leverage, that might be one thing they want to talk about. You know, can you allow remittances to continue in exchange for us helping with the wall? I think you're going to see talk about possibly changing the number of legal immigrants coming in from Mexico in particular. That might be something they want to look at. And then, of course, we're going to be talking a lot about criminals and repatriation. There are a lot of criminals, something Mr. Trump has said accurately from the beginning. Many of Mexico's criminals are in the United States, and those individuals will be sent home.
So in terms of, one of the things that the president of Mexico said is that it's in his interest. He wants to speak to Donald Trump, and he wants to protect Mexicans wherever they live. So in terms of those who have been here for a long time, and this is the issue that keeps coming up, because this is the one that I think makes it tough for Latino families and voters. I spoke to Mike Pence about this earlier today. Let's put up these approval numbers as we ask this question. Latino presidential vote preference, Latinos 66% to Hillary Clinton, 20% to Donald Trump. And take a look at the unfavorable number among Latinos, the opinion of Donald Trump, 82%. So this is the area that hits home most for them.
Yes, but let's remember this. Remember that John McCain, 8 years ago, who was probably the presidential candidate who was most open to amnesty, the most moderate or liberal on immigration policies from the Republican side, he had pretty similar numbers. It wasn't like he and Trump are miles apart where they were. So those numbers don't change too much in recent presidential elections. Obviously, if President Nieto says he would like to see humanitarian concerns addressed as people are being returned to their home country of Mexico, I'm sure that Mr. Trump will say, yes, we'll do everything we can to take care of people's needs, keep families together as they're being removed to the home country. But, you know, at the end of the day, Mr. Trump has promised to the American people that we're going to start enforcing our laws in a very serious way, something we haven't been doing for the past 7 years.
All right. So tell one last question about the wall, because it used to be, you know, sort of a high wall that went all the way across the border. Now there's talk of a different kind of wall. What kind of wall, in your discussions with him, do you think would actually happen if he were made president?
My expectation is that he intends to build a physical wall, not a virtual wall. We already have a virtual wall. We have sensors spread all across the Mexico border.
But he's talked about mountain ranges. He's talked about electronic technology. So does that concern you when you hear him say things like that?
No, because I've been to the border, and there are there's a handful of places where the way the actual land lies, you might not be able to put a traditional, 30-foot high fence, but you can still use the structure of the land. But, contrast that with the Rio Grande sector. I was just there a few weeks ago. There you have a 75-yard wide river, and there's nothing on the American side, not even a barbed wire fence or a fence post. You literally climb the bank and you're in. So we absolutely have to get serious about building these barriers.
Fascinating. All right, Chris Kobach, thank you very much. Good to have you here, sir.
Great to be with you.
So, of course, we're going to have full coverage. This is going to dominate today, really. His speech on immigration comes tonight. That starts at 9 o'clock Eastern on Fox News Channel. So we'll have previews to that, and then we'll talk about it afterwards as well, and also this big meeting with the president of Mexico. And I hope, as John Roberts suggests, that there will be a Q&A after they get together, because that will be something to watch, too.
It would be refreshing, because both sides, absent that, might put their own spin on it, which could arguably be inaccurate.